Gold Derby fans, she plays the fiercely protective mother on Showtime's new series, Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and with me is Oscar nominee Adriana Barraza. Thank you so much for joining me. This series has so much going on in it. There's the historical element, there's a supernatural element, there's the family. So what for you first drew you to this role and made you excited about the character?
Primarily because Penny Dreadful tells the story of a Mexican-American family in LA, and that is not something you frequently see, as we all know. Mm-hmm. I remember when, with a great appreciation, the first conversation I had with John and the fascinated concepts that he envisioned, Mm-hmm. The series, why he wanted a Mexican-American family at the center of the story. But above all else, I was very pleased to see how John Logan knew the Mexican way of thinking, not only like a folklore, but a deep understanding of Mexican traditions. Reading that Maria has her protective spirit, her Nahual. Nahual is a word of Aztec tradition. Nahual is this protective spirit, and for Maria is the coyote, el coyote. Surprised me, and I love it. Besides Maria's obvious epic story, the other exciting part was the supernatural world, which she holds the key to enter. That was so much fun,
Mm-hmm. And it's not only about the Mexican culture currently, but of 1938, because this is a period piece taking place in 1938. So how does that affect the way you approached your character? What kind of research did you do for that?
Well, the first approach I always take to study the script is for the key elements that makes up the personality of the character. The script is all the time. And I try to make it as true as possible, trying to find the humanity of each of her choices, especially for Maria, even if they are not novel or regular human mistakes. In this case, because of the era, the search in my main personal database was always to try and find the universal behavior of the character during the time period. And that was very easy because John's script, of the way it was written, which was with many universal themes, we all can relate to the love of a mother for her children, the pain of losing them, the joy of having them, and also the dignity to educate them, even if sometimes she's too hard, because Maria is sometimes really hard with them. And she makes mistakes because she's a human being. And I love that. I love this reality human being of Maria. That it was, I loved about the character because that makes it multidimensional. Also, John Logan gave us a research to review when we first started the series of more or less 100 pages with historical themes that are covered in the series. And I was able to learn so much because, I didn't know about this subject of Nazi regimes in LA during that time period, which I had no idea about. But, personally, I took extra time investigating a subject that worried me, La Santa Muerte, especially La Santa Muerte, because in Mexico now, in that time, and for a few decades, this image has been related with drug dealers and criminal people. But especially, I knew later in the United States, there are some chapels of La Santa Muerte that have a novel meaning behind them. And finally, in the words of John Logan, what Maria says is, La Santa Muerte is a holy angel who take care of us and guide us with God when we died. And then when I know that, I really loved this image of La Santa Muerte, and I understand Maria loves Santa Muerte too.
Yeah. You mentioned how she's hard on her children, and one of those children is played by Daniel Zavado,
Yes.
Santiago. You two have such wonderful chemistry together. You do with all the actors who play your kids on the show. What did you do? Was there anything specific to get that mother-son bond going with him? Was there anything specific that generated that?
I think I am really lucky, because I discovered in Danny that a wonderful young man who was so easy to work with him, because he's very sincere scenes partner, When he looks at you, really looks and really listen you. His talent is as great as his beautiful inner being, He's a very sensitive and respectful young man.
Mm-hmm.
A friend off camera. We had so much fun and spoke a lot about life and many, many things, love and everything, and family. But, I want to tell you that it's about my children, my whole children. And as I told you, I am really lucky to work with all of this incredible cast, obviously. But my children, Danny, Adam, Jonathan, and my dear, dear Josefina, Jessica, they are like my real children, We dined and take time for us as a real family. It was beautiful because I think this wonderful person inside them, the audience can see this related between us as honest feeling. And actually, they call me Mama. And we have a chat together, and all the time is Mama, ¿qué vas a querer, Mama? What do you want? And everything. I really love them very much. It's like my real children.
Yeah, and the scripts ask you to go to some heavy places with those kids. One of them almost dies, and you have this great moment in the hospital where you're holding a vigil and saying he will not die. So how do you, if you're like a scene in that hospital, how do you prepare for moments like that?
Oh, well, I know maybe this issue can be hard for us as an actors. But my method of working is completely formal acting, not the modern method acting, I have worked as an actress since 1972, so it has been 48 years now, in which I have tried many techniques. And for the last 20 years, I realized that formal acting was what worked best for me. But when I worked with Alejandro González Iñárritu in Amores Perros, his direction led me to realize that I have the ability to be truly truthful in a scene. I began to do my own research based on the style of many great teachers, obviously, of course, and I also pulled from my own experiences as an actress and as a teacher too. That's when I realized I work best with the fantasy of the story of my character lives in, and the technique I personally developed allows me to repeat scenes many times. That's how I was able to work with the same intensity. Then that is the reason, because I worked so comfortable in Babel with Alejandro González Iñárritu. And this particular scene that you mentioned was shot during a full day of production, over many hours of work. And when they say cut, well, I also cut the motion. And the more you practice, that it's like a motor that feeds on the energy of the previous scene. It is tiring, but only physically, not personally. Thanks God. If not, I have my own child, and I don't want to even imagine this situation like Maria in front of your dying child.
Yeah. And after she has that moment in the hospital, Santa Muerte appears, and you mentioned before that your character is sort of like the key to that spiritual world with Santa Muerte. Yeah. And she's depicted as very frightening in a lot of moments, but obviously Maria calls upon her and has immense respect for her. So what's kind of her spiritual and faith relationship like there?
I don't understand everything. ¿Me ayudas?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I need help.
Just what is your sort of faith and spiritual connection to the Santa Muerte figure?
Oh, yeah. ¿Me ayudas, por favor, querido? ¿Me dices? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, sorry. Okay, what is my, I try to understand, don't worry. What is my what? I'm sorry.
Just about Maria's connection to Santa Muerte. What is her faith like?
Yeah.
Her beliefs in her? How does she connect to that spiritual world?
Well, I think Maria has a connection with Santa Muerte because as I mentioned Maria is a kind of shaman. Actually, her children, her child, Dani, said, Mama is a little bit a bruja. But I think bruja or witch has a bad meaning, I think. It's more like a shaman, an ancient shaman, who has her spirit guide, her Nahual that I told you, that allows her to be in contact with the deity that she loves, who is La Santa Muerte, a deity that can be terrifying, but also very considerate of Maria, because she helps her, even if it's bad thing, but with good intentions, It is something paradoxical between them, I think. John and I talked about this ability that Maria has, and in my research on the subject about the Aztecs, we decided that the ability to communicate with the supernatural world is inherited through our ancestors as a Mexican. And I love this fact of Maria, because I think that everyone, but especially in Mexico, I think we have many stories of contacting that supernatural world in a so serious concept, not only like something like funny stories, no. Many times it's a very hard stories about that, Yeah.
You mentioned John Logan, the showrunner, and he's worked across all mediums through film and TV and stage, just like yourself. I'm curious, what was the process like working with John? What was his rehearsal process kind of like?
Well, I really like in the future if you can see our day of work, because it's beautiful, Working with John Logan is always feeling embraced, protected by a great story, first of all, and a masterfully written, and having a true friend on set, really supporting you for the entire day of filming. It's having a loving and extremely respectful, funny, because he's so funny, really. Human being as a producer too. It is knowing that you will be heard when you have questions or concerns. I worked for 8 months in that rewarding working environment, and it was amazing. And as I told you, I'm really lucky to work with them, and especially with John.
And he had said that he wanted to make a story about today, even though this is 1938. But there's these themes of racism, of hate and prejudice and division that run through. So what about this Penny Dreadful story feels immediate to you or contemporary to you?
As a Mexican, my heart is broken many times not only when I read, because it's a story and I say, oh, well, it's sad, but it's beautiful, it's dramatic. No, my heart is broken when I saw the reality in this country, because the issues that we raised in 1938 in Los Angeles regarding racism are very similar to what is happening now in 2020. This current administration's treatment of Mexican is the same of worse. So many millions of Mexicans who are often put in a box and categorized as criminals and drug traffickers or drug dealers is extremely unfair. That dozens and thousands of young people are not allowed to finish their education, or that children are separated from their parents and taken to those horrible detention centers is worse than the physical blows, But Mexican and Central American hands are needed to lift the crops in this country, but that the farm workers are not given any security. It's very unfair. It is cruel, and it's painful for me. Many families of Mexican descendants were born in California, Texas, Arizona, or New Mexico, when these states belong to Mexico. And those who arrived later, the majority people have come to work honestly, to put food on the table, to take care for the children and love the children of this country, to be lawyers or scientists or good professionals. So yes, I think this story is very relevant, and that in my heart is so painful for me.
Yeah, I also found out that you run your own acting school, acting training school, which is fantastic. And what do you love most about teaching? Do you think that keeps your skills sharp?
Oh, well, I think the beautiful thing that you work as a teacher is really important, because having a group of artists that look to you as a teacher, as I told you, to guide them in understand the craft of acting, forces you to always be up to date, to know about the very latest in the craft, and to be sincere when you don't know something, to tell them you honestly don't know and run to investigate what is the question. Teaching, I think, is one of the things that I love most about my profession, and it's my passion, because I think to be with these amazing young people, give the example to be life all the time, to be live in the scene. If not, well, I remember many of my friends, actors and actresses, and maybe if you think, oh my God, I know everything, oh my God, you are dead, because you cannot say that in the stage. We have to be all the time careful about that. And students give us the objective reality, you know?
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, I also wanted to sort of go back in your career a little bit when you were nominated for an Oscar for the film Babel, as well as many other nominations as well. And at Gold Derby, since we have our own awards things as well, you were actually nominated for Supporting Actress of the Decade, too, when we did it in 2010. So what was that whole experience of that whole Oscar race like for you? Do you think that opened up more roles?
Yes, of course. You have to know, well, you know, but you have to realize all the time, I'm Mexican. I'm not American. And you know, for a Mexican actress, oh my God, it's a so peculiar thing. You know, I was nominated for an Oscar 30 years ago. Unfortunately, I have not stopped working on American series or filming since then. You know, getting that nomination was an incredible honor for a Latina actress like me. And I will forever be grateful to Alejandro González Iñárritu. But I'm not only to him. I will be so grateful for every person who thought that I deserved this nomination. Thank you very much. For the people of the Academy of that time, really, thank you. You know, I've been able to work with actors and directors that I admire and look up. So now I'm here in Penny Dreadful. I'm being given the opportunity to work with John Logan, and this incredible cast is one of the great achievements of my life. Maria Vega is a wonderful woman. I love her. I love her story. I just hope everyone understands her and learns how to love her as much as I do.
Well, it's a great story, very well told, and glad you get to tell it at this point in your career.
Thank you.
Everyone who's watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep in touch with us during Emmy season, and thank you so much for talking with me, Adriana.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.